Climbing on war memorials will be a specific public order offence carrying a 3-month prison sentence and a £1,000 fine under new protest laws being introduced by the government.
Police will also be given new powers to arrest people wearing face coverings at protests. And we're joined live from Westminster by the Policing Minister, Chris Philp. Good to speak to you this morning. So, new protest measures. You're making climbing on war memorials, for instance, it will be a specific public order offence, carrying with it a penalty of a 3-month sentence and a £1,000 fine. Now, is this proportionate, in your view? And do you imagine that we'll ever see anyone do that time and get that fine?
Oh, good morning, Kate.
Good morning.
Let me just add my welcome back. It's really good to see you back on the nation's screens.
Thank you. Thank you. That's kind.
And look, thank you for the question. Look, I think it's really important that our country's principal war memorials do get respected. People have given their lives to secure our freedom, and I think veterans, but also the whole community, want to see those war memorials treated respectfully. My hope is that this law means people do treat them respectfully, including during protests, and that no prosecutions are ever needed because the law has the desired deterrent effect. That measure is just one of several. There are also, as your introductory comment said, increased powers for the police to stop protesters wearing face masks, which can often make it very difficult to identify protesters who are committing criminal offences, because often they're identified when you review the CCTV footage after a protest. So it's important the police have the power to ensure face masks are not worn at certain protests where they think it necessary. And we're also going further to make sure that while, of course, protest is a fundamental human right that we absolutely defend, it should not be done in such a way that deliberately disrupts and targets members of the public going about their day-to-day business, which is what Just Stop Oil have been trying to do last year and the year before. They haven't been protesting, they've been deliberately setting out to disrupt the lives of fellow citizens, stopping people getting kids to school, stopping people getting to work, or stopping people getting to hospital for appointments. And that is not reasonable. And so we're strengthening the law a bit further in that area as well.
And this, I'm assuming, you hope will give the police clarity, because I guess that is what the police have said is challenging. Your old boss, former Home Secretary Suella Braverman, has gone further and insisted that actually the Home Secretary of the day should be able to prevent a protest from going ahead if there are concerns. Is she wrong?
Well, I've got huge admiration and respect for Suella. I greatly enjoyed working with her in the Home Office. But I think it's most appropriate for the police to ultimately make decisions about a specific protest, because I think for politicians to get involved, that does risk politicising the decision. And it is important to make sure these things are not politicised, but the police have the powers they need to keep us safe and to stop. And the police do have powers to stop protests under, I think it's Section 13 of the Public Order Act, if they think there's going to be, criminal activity or serious violence. They've got the power to put quite significant conditions on protests under Section 12 of the Public Order Act, and they've been using those powers, particularly the Section 12 ones, recently in relation to the Israel-Gaza protests. But I think it is better that it's the police who make the operational decision rather than politicians.
Okay. You've talked a number of times already with regards to these new rules and laws, potentially, about respect, people respecting war memorials, respecting the right to protest. There's been some real accusation that the Prime Minister and his comments at PMQs yesterday was incredibly disrespectful to the family of Brianna Ghey when he made the comment, which was a way of jibing at Keir Starmer and the perceived U-turns. But actually, if we can distill it down to not the essence of the comment, but the disrespect that people feel, including her family, feel he has showed towards that family, do you think the Prime Minister should apologise?
Well, look, I think I've listened to the clip very carefully. I think anyone who's interested in this should listen to the actual clip as well. And what he was doing in PMQs yesterday, in the first exchange, was talking about a number of flip-flops and U-turns that Keir Starmer has executed in a whole number of different areas, pensions, public sector pay. He did mention Keir Starmer's flip-flops on trans issues as well. Labour have no plan on anything. We're seeing that again with their U-turn today.
We played that clip this morning, Chris. Don't worry, our viewers will have had the chance to watch it.
I think think it was very clear he was talking about Labour's flip-flops. He made no reference to any individual, including Brianna. That was something introduced by Keir Starmer afterwards. Now, later in PMQs, a Labour MP asked essentially the question that you're asking, and the Prime Minister replied by paying very warm tribute to Brianna and to her family and the campaigning they've been doing. I think
and
it was
we
right
heard
that he
that.
paid
Now,
that
what we're
very warm
talking about,
tribute.
though, Mr. Philp, as you know, is that specific moment and the sensitivity surrounding the fact that Brianna's mum was going to be in the House of Parliament at some point during yesterday as well. The question we're asking is, once the Prime Minister has realised something that he has said has offended her family and has been considered disrespectful, why can't he just apologise for that specific thing?
Well, as I say, he was asked that question by a Labour MP about 10 minutes later on in PMQs. They made that point.
And he didn't apologise. Do you think politicians shouldn't apologise? Do you think it's a sign of weakness if they show an apology, rather than hearing what's being said, understanding that he's made a mistake and actually saying, look, I'm sorry, that was not how that was intended?
No, I think apologies often are merited, and politicians and everyone, frankly, not politicians, journalists, everyone, business people, people in their day-to-day lives.
So if he'd apologised, would have put all this to bed, wouldn't it?
Look, I think you're just saying, make an apology just to sort of get through a media day. I think you need to also just view these things, quite carefully and in quite a balanced way. And he paid a very warm tribute. But if you listen to what he said, what he actually said, he was talking about Keir Starmer's record. He made no reference to any individual at all, which I think was right. You don't want to personalise these things. He was talking about a whole series of policy U-turns, of which Keir Starmer's flip-flopping on the trans issue, and his was only one.
But you
he was talking about
how
Labour's
sensitive
lack of plan.
it is, though. How sensitive that is, particularly in light of the guest that was going to be in Parliament that day.
Yeah, look, I do understand the point, and that's why he made a very, very warm tribute a few minutes later when asked that question, not just to Brianna, but to her family for the campaigning as well. I think the Prime Minister may be saying more about this later on today, but I think, he was...
So do you think he might apologise later on today? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that, actually. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he will, I think, say more about this. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cough this morning. He'll be saying more about this later. But I think what he was doing yesterday was pointing out Labour's lack of plan and their flip-flopping in a whole range of different areas, and that is a reasonable thing to do. It wasn't personalised by the Prime Minister. It was Keir Starmer who introduced the name of an individual a bit later on.
OK.
Well, good to talk to you this morning, and hope your cough gets better, and thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll look forward to hearing what the Prime Minister has to say a little bit later on. Clearly, something he's going to talk about, but thank you for joining us.